Here we go.
Hello, welcome to the Damian and Devlin show, and this is our review of Matrix Reloaded, the 2003 action sci-fi film directed by the Wachowskis, starring Keanu Reeves, Carrie-Anne Moss, and Lawrence Fishburne. Is that right?
That's
that is
right.
And other people. But those are
Other
our three.
people are in
Those
there.
are our three movies. This was Damian's choice. He loved my reaction to The Matrix when we did it earlier, and you can go back and check that out.
It's been roughly a year.
Yeah, and he decided that since I've never seen any of the others, that it was time that I start. And that means I have Revolutions to look forward to as well.
Yep.
So, for those of you who have not seen my review, I am not a big fan of the first Matrix. I am one of the few of the, whatever it is, 4% or something like that did not like it, according to Rotten Tomatoes. And so Damian decided, let's throw him the sequel, and we'll bring it over to you now, and you can explain why you wanted me to see this.
So, it's been about a year since we did The Matrix, and I remember you just absolutely hated it. And thinking about that, I asked, have you seen the sequels? And you told me, no, I've never seen the sequels because I hated...
I didn't like the first one.
Yeah, I hated the first one so much, and it blew my mind. So there was actually kind of a joke that I would eventually show you Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions, and you said, watch, I'm gonna love the sequels and hate the original. And just so you know, 5 minutes into this movie, I knew that this was not going to be that case. Oh, there's a tear in my eye.
Now, for those of you who haven't saw our review of The Matrix, Damian made a comment in there that he has watched a ton of movies with me now. Not only the ones we review, but we've watched stuff at theaters, various times. And he made a comment that he could tell I was actually antsy. I don't watch movies that way. I get lost in worlds. And he made a comment that I was antsy. What was my review of how I reacted this time? Because I don't think I was as antsy.
I felt there was a presence to the right of me because I sit here on the couch, he sits over there on the couch, and every so often I see him shaking his head in the corner of my eye. He'd throw his hands up. I've heard more than I heard dialogue in the entire movie.
That's not.
It's so true.
He's exaggerating.
So I don't want to start this because I've been dying to hear your thoughts. What are your thoughts on The Matrix Reloaded?
No comment.
That's it. There's the review. It's done. It's over.
I actually needed to take a couple moments. I usually am pretty good with wrapping my head around stuff. I will say that I did like that you chose this movie because I like to be challenged. And I didn't see the sequels because I really did not like The Matrix. Like, go back and watch. You'll see how much I hate this movie and what it has done to movie making. So I actually had to take a few moments because I just didn't know how to put my head around it. Is this my positives? Am I going into my positives?
You can start with whatever you like.
First of all, my biggest problem, anybody who knows me or knows me from even just the reviews know I like great films. I like bad films. I like bad movies that are so bad, they're good. You even made a comment, well, why don't you like this? It's bad, but you like The Room and stuff like that, Dead Snow and stuff. But it's a different kind of bad. There's bad and then there's bad. But one movie I have trouble with is self-aware movies. Movies that come off as, this is an important movie. Everything we say will lead to a deep conversation. Every character has a God complex and comes off like, I have an important vision to share with you. We all have an important mission. But most of the time, they won't reveal it to anybody, or I get the strong feeling they don't. This movie has like huge, gigantic balls proclaiming that this is an important movie. This is going to explain society, the world, and nobody ever answers the questions. My big this is my positives. I'm not even starting with my positives. I give this 2 ways, and then I honestly will get to my positives, because I really have to fill up my positive speaking, and I don't have a lot. I take this as 2 things, and I told you this, but you didn't hear the other one. The first one is, I think when they wrote this script, it seems like 2 people that smoked pot or took acid. I don't even think it's pot. It's harder drugs. Like, they took... And then just wrote everything about life. Like, it seems like, you know, deep conversations about life where if you record it and then later you realize you thought you had this deep conversation, but then you realize there was nothing in it. That's what I took as the script. Then, I love role-playing. I've been a role player all my life, and I'm proud 50-year-old. I will sit and play, you know, rolling the dice, that kind of role-playing, not me dressing up and doing stuff. Well, I like that too sometimes. But I love role-playing. You know that, right?
Yeah.
So I am not putting down role-playing in any way. But this movie is filmed as if when you're playing, you know, role-playing, and you roll a dice and something goes wrong in that this is what you're envisioning is happening in the movie. Like, any role player knows what I'm talking about right now. When you have a kick-ass scene, you're thinking of it in your head. And that's what this movie is filmed like. Like, oh, I know how that scene would look. Then there would be this, and then there'd be a slow motion jump, and then I'd do a twirl. And that's the only way I can describe this movie. My positives. There were some.
Are there?
I liked some of the set design. I liked some of the set design. I liked the actual worlds when they're not in the Matrix, even though I may have came across that I didn't, but I kind of liked it. There's a line where somebody said it's good to be home, and then they show like this horrible looking thing. But you know what? I liked it. I like that world because it seems the closest to real in me. Because whenever we're in the Matrix, I never know exactly where we are. It's just... You know, you could be in a dojo, you could be in a park, you could be on a building.
It jumps all over the place.
And I think those scenes are more real. My other thing, I did like some of the action sequences, but my problem with is every time I got to liking an action sequence, something would come in that I didn't like. I didn't like some of the choreography. There's one fight scene that, I'm going into my negatives again, I'm trying to stay positive. So I liked some of the fight scenes, but I felt every fight scene pretty much would eventually lead to something I didn't like. But I'm shouting out the good parts. I've seen a couple things by these directors, and I'm sorry, I don't care if I lose my movie cred. Speed Racer is still a better looking film than the first 2 Matrix. I can now say that because I have seen. There were very minuscule moments of the soundtrack I liked. I think the soundtrack actually was ridiculous at times, but there are a couple of times I was like, oh, that's pretty. That worked pretty good. And then other times I said, oh, God, like everything they do has to have like some... It wasn't a memorable soundtrack. I'm just trying to find nice things. So there were a couple moments that I said, hey, that's not bad. Anyhow, you have more positives than me.
Do I?
I don't know. I don't know.
He has no idea how.
You were going on about, you know, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. And I said, I'm a little nervous about what you're going to say. Because if you load it with how this is the greatest movie ever, it's better than La La Land and Dirty Dancing all in one, then I might have to like have trouble, you know, sleeping tonight thinking this is my partner in crime.
No.
Okay.
So first and foremost, no, I don't like them better than... I don't like this movie better than Dirty Dancing or La La Land.
How about The Matrix? Because you asked me at one point, are you at least enjoying it more than The Matrix? And I said, no. Because The Matrix is self-important, but it doesn't come off as... This is double. This is ramped up.
Very
so
much
we are
so.
self-important. Sorry, I'll shut up now.
So
these are positives.
So to answer your question,
Yes.
no, I don't like this one better than I do like The Matrix. I think the original Matrix is really well. See the review for that for my thoughts on it. This one, though, I have problems with, and I've always had problems with. Oh, look, I'm going into my negatives before I've touched on my positives.
The movie gets you to go there. Positive. Think positive.
Positives. I like a lot of the action sequences, but at the same time, it's a double-edged sword, and I'll explain why in a bit. I'll agree with you. Most of the time, the soundtrack is not that great, but there are a few instances where I really felt it worked.
I think in the first one, I actually did like
You did.
the soundtrack,
You
but
did.
this one I thought was choppy.
I feel like they lost like their budget for the soundtrack, or because you had like Rob Zombie and other people,
That's right.
and good industrial techno music in the last one. And this one, it was just like a mix of
Is Moby in it?
musical.
They have Moby in
Don't bring
Sorry.
that piece of garbage up.
Okay, sorry. I'm poking you. I'll be good.
So there are some aspects I agree with you where I felt it worked. I felt the whole hard techno sound on the freeway. I thought that was really well done. And thinking about it, I think that's really the only part of the soundtrack that I actually do like. I loved the freeway sequence. I think everybody that's seen this movie, you aside, likes the freeway sequence.
I had moments.
I know
I
you
had
said you
moments.
liked moments, but that to me is the best part of the movie. I liked it a lot, and I will say I liked the two new characters that they brought in for the movie. Were the two twins there. They're albino and completely white. I thought they were unique and interesting, and every time I watch this movie, I made reference to you. I forget what happens, and maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, but I always forget how are they going to deal with these guys because they are seemingly invulnerable. And so it adds a level of danger to it in my mind, and I really liked that aspect of it. There are some beautiful shots, there are some fantastically artistic shots in this, but that's basically where my positives come to an end with this movie. This one, I've seen
What
all
about
three.
characters or?
I've seen all three
Okay.
movies. No,
Okay.
and this is, I'm going to get into my negatives here in a second, but I've seen all three of the Matrix movies. I love the first one. The second one I feel is absolutely bonkers. And then the third one, hold on, because we're going to review that eventually. But the second
2-3 years at least
one,
down the road.
it's ridiculous. You're absolutely right. People, or the movie itself, it just, hello, I'm the Matrix. I'm super important. By the way, have I told you how important I am? Let me spend the next 2.5 hours explaining why I'm important, and you should feel stupid for not being as important as me. That's how the movie comes off to me, as if it were a real person. So, I'm not going to touch on my negatives just yet. It's very pretentious. So pretentious. As if the writers, the Wachowskis, if you didn't attend their acid party, then you're just not smart enough to grasp the wonder that is this movie, apparently. So I'll let you touch on your negatives before we kind of tag team it here.
Well, the script is an absolute mess.
It's a nightmare.
It's pretentious, and when I talk about pretentious, I'll try to explain it a little bit, even though I don't know if I'm going to come off sounding pretentious by explaining it. This movie is so obvious that they want to use religious symbolism. Like Neo, Jesus Christ, there's some Buddhism in there, there's Jediism in there, there's lots of that. Even what you said near the end where you didn't accept something, I just accepted it as, well, Jedis are cool, well, that's a religion for us, let's do it. But what I hate is that they set up all this stuff, like trying to go deep, and then they just crap on all of it. They don't have any respect for any of the religion thing. Almost like, okay, we're going to use the symbolism because it's cool. It's kind of like when people, and I don't want to put down people, but it's when people like are wearing religious medallions, whether it's a cross or where it's Buddha thing, or if they have tattoos, but they don't really follow the religion. They're doing it to be cool. It's like wearing a cool band because everybody's wearing it, and they're not. So to not have any respect for any of that is ridiculous. Like, you know, if you're going to play Neo as a Jesus Christ character, don't worry about him so much having a love relationship. If he's so dedicated to helping, you know, they seem to concentrate so much on this love affair. Absolutely no chemistry. I was pretty cruel to Carrie-Anne Moss, and I won't be this time. But there is no chemistry between anybody in this movie, especially the love scenes. No, I shouldn't say that. I don't know the characters. The pilot, I think he's the pilot. Link and his wife actually had some nice moments. And there was a nice character at the beginning, a young guy, that they actually just crap on him, and he's just idolizing them. And all they do is diss him behind his back and fake in front of him. But the fact that they pull out all these stops and then they just crap on all this religious stuff that they're pulling. Like, they're pulling stuff from the Bible. They're pulling stuff from Star Wars. Just any science fiction they can get a hand on. Buddhism, anything. And then they just crap on all of it because they're like, this is our world. We can do what we want. The negative talk, every time they try to answer a question, it's like, well, we have machines that we need to survive, but the machines are trying to kill us. There's hackers hacking the hackers. Why are you doing this? I don't know, but you don't have to know. Everything is talked in a riddle. And every character that comes on, every time I see a character that I kind of want to be endeared to, like Monica Bellucci comes on and she's kind of interesting, and the guy she's with is kind of interesting, and then they start becoming ridiculous. Like, I'll help you, but you got to kiss me. Like, this is supposed to be deep stuff, and it's not. And I start losing respect for the characters. Another problem I have with the pretentiousness of this is they're trying to build these big, I think they expect that a lot of people who see this movie are going to go out and talk. Because we were trying to figure out, you even said at one point, I got to watch this part because I don't know if I get it. And then you think you got it this time. And I think they want people to go out and talk about it. But the movie never really answers any of their own questions. So really, you're just talking about it, but there are no answers because I don't think they have any. But the thing I hate most, and I'm using the word hate, which I don't like to use in a movie or anything, is that they treat the audience as stupid.
Yeah.
And every time I tried to like something in this movie, and I have an example, and you mentioned them, every time I try to like them, the script has to remind you that you might not be smart enough to figure that out. There's a sequence where you mentioned the two brothers that become cyber ghosts.
Yeah. And
they actually turn into a cyber ghost, and I thought for 1 second, wow, that's actually pretty cool. And then they cut to Carrie-Anne Moss and says, well, that's a pretty neat trick. I can't even have my opinion. They actually have to write in the script, hey, did you think that was cool? We better write something in there in case somebody wasn't sure if they thought that was cool. I might be overdoing it here, but I never felt a sense of danger for these people. The villains, I don't understand how they can't win, because they can literally just turn anybody in the Matrix into them or one of their henchmen. So why don't you just turn everybody in the highway scene a henchman, and then we'll just randomly pick people.
I'll correct you on that. I'll correct you on that. The reason they can't do that, they only do it specifically, is to keep it contained, because the agents are meant to contain things that go wrong, to keep everybody that's still plugged in aloof. They don't want them to realize, wait a second, 100 people just transformed into these suited super soldiers. What the heck is going on? Then people are going to start questioning, and then blah, 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 and then the Matrix fails. That's why they can't do that. I know you're on a roll here, but I kind of want to agree with you, but I want to disagree with you at the same time with regards to characters being in danger. So I mentioned I liked a lot of the action sequences, but it's a double-edged sword. I liked a lot of the action sequences without Neo. I hate watching the action sequences with Neo because you said it perfectly. There's no sense of danger with him. He's all powerful, omnipotent. He's omnipotent. He can do whatever he wants. He can fly. He can bend things. He can just destroy at will. There's no danger whenever he's around. And I find his fight scenes a little ridiculous. It's quite clearly he's being pulled on a wire. He's doing all these elaborate moves for no reason other than because maybe it looks cool. But I disagree. It kind of distracts from the actual fight sequence. I felt refreshed when I would see Morpheus in a fist fight with one of the agents and whatnot, because I felt Morpheus is like a literal dude that could potentially be shoved off the edge of this truck here and die. And when they're shooting at them, I thought, okay, they have to take cover because these are normal people, whereas Neo will just hold his hand up and then the bullets will stop. There's no sense of danger with regards to Neo. So whenever he wasn't involved, I enjoyed it. Whenever he was involved, I hated it. So that's me. So I'll let you continue on with that.
I won't, because I can go so long. I'll stay. I think the acting is piss poor in this. I think there's a couple of people who are really trying. I'm not crapping on Keanu Reeves. I think he actually does pretty good. If you want to see an action movie that he is really good in, John Wick 2, I think he does. I know he can do better. But piss poor. And my number one thing, everything I talk about with these movies is I need a movie. Movies have heart to me. And these movies are so adored and loved. And I know some people are critical of them, but there's absolutely no heart in these movies. And I watch movies because of heart. I can see a movie like The Room that is a bad movie, but I saw a director who had a belief in it, and I can see the heart in a movie like that. I can see a heart in a movie in a horror film. I see no heart in this, and I can't watch. It's hard for me to watch movies that don't have any sense of feeling or anything, and I'm getting too emotional, so please, negatives.
Like I already touched on the action sequences involving Neo, and I will completely agree with you. Keanu Reeves came off as a piece of wood. He was trying to convey emotion. I know he was trying to convey emotion, but I don't know what his problem was. He just, I love you. I want you to stay out of the Matrix. No facial movement, no expression whatsoever, and barely any inflection in his voice. He just came off as wooden, and so did Carrie-Anne Moss. And you know what? Credit to Lawrence Fishburne, he was at least trying, but he was trying so much that it became over-the-top wacky with regards to his, I believe in the one, and the one will save us.
I don't think they believed in the dialogue.
I think
you get this is my committed performance, but it doesn't necessarily come off as a well-acted performance.
And you know, going so far as to even say, like, all the supporting characters, except for two, are the exact same way. Jada Pinkett Smith as Naomi.
Yeah, that's a waste. I like her as an actress, and that was a waste.
Horrible.
Waste.
And I don't even know the actor that plays the commander of the military forces, but he was also just a board. The only two characters I felt that weren't stiff boards were the young guy that you mentioned earlier, who was infatuated with Neo, and then two, the driver, Link. I felt he was the only real human on the crew, and he was reacting and had emotion.
And the wife telling him, I'm worried for you. I actually felt that.
Yeah, like, ridiculous acting. Ridiculous. And, you know, the script, he's touched on it. I'm going to touch on it for a moment because, yeah, the script treats you like you're an idiot, and it insults your intelligence. So much so that I did have to say, every time I watch this scene, I don't know if I understand it. I feel like an idiot. And a movie should not make me feel like an idiot. A TV show should not make me feel like an idiot. It should be explained in a way that everybody gets it. And this, it's the scene where Neo walks into a room with all these TV monitors and he's talking to a dude named the Architect. And if you've seen the scene, you'll probably know what I'm talking about, because I remember seeing the movie with a bunch of my friends during high school, and after it was done, we all looked at each other. We weren't high, but we were like, what the hell did we just watch? What? Did we miss something? It's all over the place. It's hard to follow at times. Like they're going on missions to do this and that, and it's only after a certain period of time during the middle of the mission, so I think they're doing this to do this. Still, it's not confirmed. I still think this. And I've seen this movie many times, and I still have to question myself on it, and that's not a good sign of good script writing at all whatsoever. So the storytelling...
I'll just say one thing, and then it's good when a movie makes you think, but when it makes you feel stupid, because you're not even sure if you talk to the screenwriters if they knew. They just thought it was clever writing, and we'll keep it. And that's all I just want to say. I think a movie that makes you think is good, not when you've seen it multiple times and you come out still like, I feel stupid.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I'm not jumping on the bandwagon that he is on where he hates the Matrix. I'm not, because you heard me say I loved the first Matrix movie. I thought it was very well done. I thought, it was self-important to a point, but it didn't take itself so seriously that it became narcissistic, where I believe this movie is absolutely in love with itself. My last negative is the ending. what a horrible, horrible ending. I understand they were preparing for the Matrix Revolutions, and it came out, you said 6 months after this one was released?
Something like that. Yeah, they filmed them back to
But
back.
my God, they could have ended it in such a better way. There were so many places where they could have ended it instead of tune in next week for more on The Matrix.
Yeah.
Because it felt like a TV show where it leaves you on a cliffhanger. It even comes up to be concluded. What?
Yeah, it was a TV show ending,
It
and
was
they
a total
even TV shows have better endings. than
Like,
that, but-
it felt like a season finale leading towards the next season of a TV show, but season finales are supposed to wrap things up and then introduce slowly, albeit minutely, the next season, whereas it felt like right smack dab in the middle of the movie, ended. Tune in next week for The Matrix Revolutions. Horrible ending. Horrible ending. What are you giving this movie?
I can't remember what I gave The Matrix. I want to say I was generous,
It was a
but
1.
gave it a 1.
I think it was a 1.
I'm going to go half a point. I told you I'll never give a movie a 0. I'd have to be really physically offended by a movie, because my dad always taught me when I was a little boy that even the worst movies, there's going to be something in there that's good. And as I said, I did find a couple pluses, even if it's just set design. Hey, I know a lot of people worked hard on this movie, so I don't want to just shit on things, and say 0. So I'm going to give it a half a point.
All right, fair enough. During the middle of the movie, because like I said, I had forgotten a lot about this movie. During the middle of it, I was like, yeah, this is all right. It's 3. It's 3. There are a lot of things that I don't like. Oh, another negative I don't like. Sorry to detract. But there are horrible uses of CGI in this movie.
Oh.
There's a fight scene between Neo and Agent Smith in a park, and that's some of the worst CGI I've seen besides watching a movie from the 70s and 80s when CGI was still developing. This came out in 2003. There's no excuse for how bad that CGI looks. And then also
But there was some good in that too. That's the weird part. Because
there was.
his face on every person was really well done.
There
It's
was.
just some of the other parts of it. were-
Horrible. And then I could tell on the freeway scene that like certain shots were filmed in CGI when the Trinity on her motorcycle's weaving through traffic, because the camera would go through vehicles. And that brought me out of it. I'm like, okay, I feel like I am watching a video game where the camera's just phasing through a graphic. So that's another negative. With all that in mind, I sat there for a while thinking, 3, it's okay. Then I started to remember, all right, this is what I don't like about it. This is what this movie makes me feel. And it brought it down. I'm giving this a 2. I'm giving this one a 2. There are things that I like about it. I do like the Matrix universe as a whole, but this is the black spot on the movie franchise, in my opinion. Any more you want to say about it?
No, the sooner we finish talking, we can talk about the movies we have coming up, which is
Yeah.
good stuff, because we got Halloween around the corner.
Halloween is right around the corner, so make sure that you always tune in. And make sure that you always comment. Let us know what you think about The Matrix Reloaded. Did you like it? Did you agree with us? Did you feel insulted by this movie like I did? We always want to know what you think. And we also want to know what you want us to see next. Even though our Fan Appreciation Month is long over, we are still always, always, always open to suggestions. So like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure that you don't plug yourself into this Matrix. Watch the first one first. And next time, you never know where we're going to end up.